How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
All right, the new year has begun, and that also means that we are finally at the end of our long-running series of videos on the Star Wars movies, with The Rise of Skywalker now being in theaters for 2 weeks now. We've given ourselves enough time, I think, to think about this movie and, I don't know, kind of do some self-reflective thought about this whole entire franchise now, I guess, huh?
Absolutely.
And also on a side note, obviously Rise of Skywalker isn't on Blu-ray yet, so that's why it's not here for set dressing. So we have Star Wars cups, including an amazing Akbar mug that was gifted by my sister. Your bowels can't repel soup of that magnitude.
Calories of that magnitude.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
Speaking of things of that magnitude, this movie has the most magnitude of all of them combined. JJ decided to just basically say, well, he said in an interview that he's just like, F it, I'm just doing what I want. And it's true. He did what he wanted.
Well, we all know he didn't want to make this movie.
Well, that's true.
You wanted Colin Trevorrow to do it. Wait, so let's give a little bit of history. Because remember back when this movie was in its infancy stages, before Force Awakens, they're like, we don't have a plan. And then JJ was like, here's what I think should happen. And they were like, no, just kidding. Force Awakens happens, Last Jedi happens. And while Last Jedi was happening, Colin Trevorrow got fired, didn't he?
Yes.
From doing this. So Kathleen Kennedy was like, JJ, I'll give you $100 million if you do this. I don't know how much he got paid, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
I sure hope it was $100 million.
I sure hope he got paid a lot of money to come out and do this. I like J.J. Abrams. I think he's good at some storytelling. I think he comes up with some good concepts. Like if you've watched, like Lost started out cool and then got kind of convoluted at the end. We won't talk about that because it's long and you probably just need to watch it. Person of Interest was good from start to finish, I thought. I thought that one was good. So, I mean, J.J. Abrams knows how to pull a story out of thin air. But this one, it was like, Force Awakens was one thing, and then he was like, all right, I got everything set up, and Rian Johnson was just like, nope. And J.J. Abrams was like, okay, I'm still going to do the things that I want to do, but I'm going to squeeze 1.5 movies into one movie.
It feels so rushed and unplanned. Like you said, there was no plan. There was no organization. Like, even from what we've heard about the story group going back and forth on different things, it's just crazy what he had to work with because every director and writer was working independently, essentially.
Yeah, and that's fine if you're making like the standalone films.
Yeah, Rogue One, Solo, absolutely.
And even though you can debate on the quality of those movies, at least you can tell that those movies had a more consistent vision to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't
Rogue
know.
One-ish, but
Rogue One had a pretty good vision. Solo was a little bit all over the map. A little bit.
It was also has the reshoots and different directors.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah,
we talked
kinda
about that
did,
in Solo.
Yeah.
But they had to switch directors for Solo and change basically the whole movie.
I think Zach's right, though.
But I agree with you.
You can tell it starts as a solo movie, it ends as a solo movie, it's a solo movie.
Yes.
Rogue One, it's a good war film set in Star Wars from beginning to end.
Yes.
And
I agree with you.
Quality's debatable, but their vision is not, like Zach was saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Rise of Skywalker to me has been really interesting because, we waxed poetic about The Last Jedi in our previous video, and
That's one way,
but I have
funny.
to admit to you guys, now that I've seen this, that I have indeed been a little bit overwrought in my praise for that movie. Like, I recognize more of its actual flaws now that this movie has come out. And it's just made me reshape my whole opinion on this trilogy for all the reasons you just said.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also, I have to make something clear here. Like, I want to just fall in love and enjoy Star Wars and just forget everything in my life when I go to one of these movies. But as someone who's just gotten so cynical at this point, and someone who can, see, the business decisions behind making movies, now I can't watch any of these movies without thinking about all the background stuff. And it pulls me out. And it pulled me out of this movie, too.
And that's the exact thing that they don't want to happen with this kind of movie.
Yeah.
Like, the Disney Star Wars films, to me, have felt so business-like, so factory-produced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, all right, it's like they were done in committee. Like, what can we do here that will be funny and will be appealing to the largest number of people as possible?
What did she say in Phantom Menace?
I'm not a committee!
No, it's Empire Strikes Back. I am not a committee!
But it's essentially that. At least how it feels to me. Like, Rise of Skywalker feels like so many decisions that were, well, what would you think would appeal to the lowest common denominator of individuals with this film? What about Star Destroyers with Death Star lasers?
No! I've talked to a bunch of people about this movie. I've talked to some managers. I even had a discussion with my manager, one of the managers at Cinemark, about this that lasted probably a lot longer than it should have, and he despised the movie. And he was like, it's basically turned me off to Star Wars. As a whole, this whole trilogy has turned him off to Star Wars, and I was like...
That's how I felt after Last Jedi.
Well, no, but he was like, I'll watch Mandalorian, I'll probably play the games, I'll probably get excited the next time there's a Star Wars movie. But he's like, I am just, right now, I'm completely off to Star Wars right now. And this sequel has done it for me. And I was like, holy crap. And he's like, I even feel bad talking about this because I know that people liked this movie and I don't want to try and change anybody's opinions about it. Mm-hmm. He was like, I just didn't really like it at all, and it's really killed it for me. I was like, whoa. And while this franchise hasn't been killed for me, I judge these movies on the ability to pull me out of my regular life and bring me back to when I was a kid watching these movies.
That's what I
And so yeah, you guys both made the same points to me, and we've hammered it pretty clear over these whole movies. Mm-hmm. The first hour of this movie was like, what is going on?
So much.
And about the halfway point. Oh, did we say there were spoilers? Are we all?
It's a spoiler-filled discussion.
Okay, spoilers. When Kylo Ren has that vision of Han Solo, that kind of brought me back, and I really liked that.
I did like that.
And it did better for me after that point, but before that, there was like, what in the... I had no idea what was going on. And I could kind of follow it, but I was like, we have to find the viewfinder to do this. Wait, they killed Chewie? No, they didn't. Oh wait, now we're on the Star Destroyer. Rise of Palpatine.
To find a MacGuffin, to find another MacGuffin, to find a third MacGuffin, and that MacGuffin gets destroyed. So you need to find a fourth MacGuffin.
Actually, now that you say that,
MacGuffin.
I was actually thinking about that this morning, and you know what I realized about the whole, basically first half of this movie is
it's a video game.
It's a fetch quest.
Not just that. It's like the fetch quest in Ocarina of Time when you're trying to get the big Goron sword, or you're just going from place to place to place to place.
Well, I was thinking of it as we were coming out of the movie. I compared it to Knights of the Old Republic. Because you know how they have to find all the different star maps on all the different worlds?
Oh yeah, and you have to drive to every place.
It's like they took 3/4 of Knights of the Old Republic and squished it into an hour. Yeah. That's what this movie felt like. That's what the first hour
That's
felt
true.
like.
Knights of the Republic, you hop around a lot in that game. I mean, you still have to do all the side quests and play the game.
Well, and that's what they did in Rise of Skywalker. There was all kinds of side quests going on as they were trying to do the first things.
I fall back on if they'd had a plan. The movie would have been amazing.
We all do.
The good thing about J.J. Abrams in doing that is that he understands that having a plot in your movie keeps it going and keeps the momentum, which this movie has momentum. It's probably the fastest moving of these three movies.
Of any Star Wars movie, honestly.
Yeah, but to a detriment though, because there's so much plot in the first half of this movie that is just...
They have to find the message from the deserter from the First Order, or the spy.
At the very beginning?
From the very beginning. They have to find the message from the spy. They have to go to find the
Sith dagger.
They find the Sith dagger. You find out Rey's been training, and then she has to go with them on the Sith dagger quest. They go to the color festival place.
Yeah.
And then they end up finding the guy who went to Exegol's ship, and they fall through the floor, and they heal the sandworm.
Yeah.
And and I mean, some people will like the fact that it goes like and doesn't give you any time to just what is going on. Like, it just goes really, 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 really fast until Death Star, and then it's like, just kidding. We have to slow down a whole bunch so that you'll really like Kylo Ren again. Which I actually appreciated that Han Solo came back to him, and I appreciated that they were like, Kylo Ren is still a good guy, Ben Solo, and I liked that he came back. And I wish that they would have been more screen time for Ben Solo, if that makes sense.
I feel like the Adam Driver performance after he got stabbed and almost killed by Rey, from that point on, is an Adam Driver from an entire different movie.
It gets very goofy.
It's like they had, like, that's the kind of character you would see after his own trilogy of development.
Yeah.
And so after that point,
killed, so
he didn't, and he also only said one word, ow, after that point. So
if anyone has ever seen the movie What If, it's a romantic comedy with Daniel Radcliffe in it. I feel like the Adam Driver post Return to the Light Side is like the Adam Driver from that.
I just had sex. I'm about to eat nachos!
Before that, Adam Driver, for me, he has always been one of the best parts of this whole trilogy. For me personally, I really like the actor in general.
yeah.
I think he was good in this movie too. I thought he was good in all three of them.
I don't think you'll find many people that disagree with that. That Adam Driver has been, like, his acting has carried the Kylo Ren character forward for
I would
all three
argue the
movies.
whole movies, honestly.
All three. Yeah.
There's a meme, the handshake from Commando between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers. There's a meme where one bicep is Ewan McGregor and one is Adam Driver, and they're like
carrying the
whole movies. It was a funny meme, but it was true. I thought Adam Driver, every movie that he was in. Now, granted, Force Awakens is a little bit like, he's a little bit out of control, and that's fine. But I thought Last Jedi, I thought he did a good job, and I thought in this one he did a good job too. And I even like when he's kind of goofy Ben Solo, where he does the no-look shot like Kylo Ren, does the
little
shrug, and he was good. And even when he's blocking behind his back and somebody hits the lightsaber, and he's like, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. It's Han Solo-y, and I liked it. I really thought he did a good job with this movie. So did Daisy Ridley. I thought she was good too.
Yeah.
I liked her lightsaber at the end too. That was cool.
I don't think that any of the performances really stood out, but I think everyone was trying with what they had, for sure.
I think C-3PO stood out.
Actually, that's true.
I have never liked C-3PO more than in this movie.
That is true.
His comic timing was perfect.
About as great as Empire Strikes Back, at least.
Absolutely. You didn't call my name, sir, but I am alright.
He's just over it at this point.
Okay, and he had the most tear-jerking freaking moment in the whole movie. And it was in the trailer. When they're hooking him up to turn him off, I was like, holy crap, they're going to kill C-3PO. And he's not going to be as I remember him. And he's like, I'm taking one last look, sir, at my friend. And I was like,
that.
No, I
think I know why, though.
Yes.
I really liked it. And I was like, holy crap, they're going to kill off my childhood. No. And then he was fine. But I really liked that line. I thought it was a good emotional line. Now tell me why I'm wrong.
Not you're wrong, but I personally hate that line because it doesn't feel earned. Before this movie, he had not interacted with Finn.
Oh, that is fair.
All
okay.
three characters.
Yeah, that's true.
Now,
Poe a little bit.
He might not have.
No, Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
All the scenes on the ship.
Not in
That's
Force
right.
Awakens. Last
Force
Jedi.
Awakens he had, but so we can assume that during that year that takes place in between Last Jedi and Rise.
There's only a year?
It's only a year.
Oh, jeez. I
And
didn't know that before.
And so we can assume that there's some friendship, but there's no way that he's saying that it feels earned that C-3PO would say, I'm saying goodbye to my friends, talking to three people who have barely interacted with each other this entire trilogy.
Yeah, that I thought was a detriment because they were trying to go for the Luke, Han, and Leia vibe.
And even in Rise of Skywalker, when they're interacting, it feels like they hate each other 90% of the time.
Yes.
Well, I've heard it explained this way before, and it makes sense that, like, they're in such a stressful situation constantly that you wouldn't expect them to be all buddy-buddy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that still this friendship hasn't been built up Like the
Empire Strikes Back, they were still like aggressive to each other because of the hostile situation.
Yeah.
But there were still quiet moments when they could compliment each other, when they could really like show their chemistry as actors and characters.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was so few scenes of that in this movie. Partly because of the pacing problems, but partly because of the writing. Like, what did Finn do this entire movie besides yell Rey's name and then imply that he's force sensitive? He had one emotional scene with a brand new character. When he's
that only
talking
has
about,
like 2 scenes, by the way.
that only has 2 scenes. When he's having
Same
that
with
little talk
Zori,
about,
too.
Yeah.
when he's talking about like leaving the stormtroopers behind,
Yeah.
that was a genuine emotional scene. It felt right to him. Well, except she's a brand new character. That's not Finn or Poe or Rey that he's talking to. It's just
Yeah. So there were people, even Oscar Isaac was like, Disney should have played up their Finn and Poe romantic storyline thing. And I will echo the opinion that I saw on Facebook. If they would wanted to do that, I guess they could have done it, but they would have had to build it up, right? And not just like shove it in the 3 seconds of the movie, because that would have been weird and
like a certain kiss at the end.
yeah, like they would have had to build it up. If they had wanted to do it, they would have had to start it in Last Jedi, right?
Or Force Awakens.
Or Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with the 3 of them is their chemistry. We don't, like you said, we don't have any build up, and the fact that they're trying to push on us, hey, they're friends now. It's not really backed up by the story. We're just kind of left to assume.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to
just buy the novels and comics, and then you can see the friendship.
Or
No.
you can drop into Fortnite and you can discover Palpatine's message.
Which is
That would-
absolutely atrocious.
The
Who would've thought?
Fortnite tie into this movie was a little bit weird. I will admit I actually played the Fortnite Star Wars thing, and the lightsabers in that game are kind of cool. But like the fact I didn't know about that until the night when we were gonna see it. I was like, wait, what? That's part of that was part of the advertising campaign for this movie, and I was like,
Is dropping key lore stuff.
yeah,
in
why
a
wouldn't they
video
post that
game.
online or make it like an official Emperor? Think about how cool it would have been if they'd have been like a campaign for like a week before the movie. The Emperor has left a message for the galaxy.
Or, use the game that's actually set in this time period, Battlefront 2, and do it there.
The only problem is that it's not free.
But,
Nobody
Like-
plays that anymore.
seriously.
Except YouTubers.
You use the game that you already own that's set in Star Wars in this time period. Oh, wait, no, we're going to use Fortnite.
No,
instead.
but it would have been
Yeah.
cool to have like a collect message from the Emperor on all the internet, like take over YouTube for a day or something. Like, the Emperor has a message from the galaxy that we're gonna blow everybody up. And that would have been fine. I would have been cool, and that would have built some hype for this movie. Because besides that, there was like, maybe I just don't watch TV, but I didn't feel like there was that much hype for this movie. Like,
Well, there's 23 TV spots, but that showed like a quarter of the movie before it even come out.
yeah, but still,
Yeah.
I didn't feel like there was much advertising done by this movie up until the release.
Mm-hmm. And for people like us who've been kind of like, I guess, burnt on Star Wars a little bit, there wasn't really much anticipation from any of, I guess, the kind of fans that we are. Like, other people have been excited, and other people just want to see it because it's another Star Wars, and that's great.
Something that was really interesting to me is that Google searches for The Rise of Skywalker were so much lower than The Mandalorian searches, and that Baby Yoda searches eclipsed both of those completely. And
Jeez.
so, just the idea that a single character from a TV show that had no established characters whatsoever in it is just completely beating in public awareness the last movie of the entire Star Wars series. Like, that's insane to me.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that Baby Yoda is really popular. But I think even beyond that, The Mandalorian's good.
Yep.
It's got enough nostalgia in it that it's not full of member berries, but also it's like doing something new with the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people talk about Star Wars fatigue, and I'm like, look at Marvel. We're 20-something movies into Marvel now, and it's still making $1 billion. Like, their last 5 movies have all made over $1 billion. and Endgame made $3 billion. So
Pretty much, yeah.
like it gets to the point where fatigue isn't the problem, quality is the problem.
That is.
And it all goes back to our whole thing about having a plan.
Having a plan.
Because, say what you will about the Marvel franchise, but
They
Kevin
had a
Feige and those
plan.
people,
It was all
they know
planned.
what they're doing. Like, I can't even fathom being a producer and, like, actually having a story group that can connect together 20 plus movies into a finale that works.
Endgame itself, I mean, I will agree. I tend to agree with you. I watched Endgame again and I was like, oh, what? Anyway, say what you will. The Endgame was good enough, and it tied a bunch of them. Like there was throwbacks to the other Avengers movies after that. Like it was good.
It tied up lines from 20 separate movies.
And started new lines.
And started new lines and finished those in the same movie too, and it started new stuff for future movies. Rise of Skywalker couldn't even tie up the lines from its own movie.
Yes.
Or Last Jedi, or The Force Awakens, because there's stuff in all 3 movies that were unfinished by the end of Rise of Skywalker.
Where did they get the lightsaber?
A good question for another time.
I wanted to comment more about the correlation between this and Endgame, because I think the third act of this movie, like I know that these movies were in different production periods and development periods, but so much of the final act feels like Lucasfilm was trying to pull off their own Endgame in very specific ways.
Yeah.
And it falls flat on its face.
Yeah.
And for 2 specific ways. One, the fact that like every single ship in the galaxy just shows up out of nowhere, and like the build up towards that moment.
The portal scene all over again.
Yeah, I like the music that they use there because it's the full Star Wars theme being used.
The music in this movie is amazing.
Yep,
glorious.
It is. John Williams killed it. Way to go, man. Right off into the sunset with your millions of dollars.
Oh, it's incredible. But the problem with that scene is because like, for one thing, we basically know nobody behind these ships except for Zori and the crew of the Millennium Falcon. We pretty much knew everyone that was there at the end of Endgame, and you felt that because it was build up from other movies. The only build up that we have for this sequence at the end of the movie when all these ships show up, all these people. It's just because like the setup that we get for that is in The Rise of Skywalker when Lando just goes off and does all this recruiting off screen.
Yep. And a book. Like they did say that the Rise of the Resistance book, or whatever it's called, was key to understanding this scene.
Well, screw the book.
Well, so I have something to say about that. Because we've talked about the comics, and we've had text chats about some of the comic book threads that have happened over the last little bit.
I love sending you guys some of the weird things.
No. So here's the thing, though. Endgame didn't rely on any books off of the screen. I mean, because they're independent from the comic books.
Yeah.
But everything that Endgame referenced, you can trace back to a specific part in each movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just... I'm so tired. I love Star Wars, but I don't have the time to read all these stinking comic books and books to...
Just buy the DLC and then it'll all make sense. Just buy the DLC.
Be quiet. Go home, Jared.
Consume product and be happy.
It just... No.
Appreciate flashing lights.
I can't...
Big colors.
I
Look,
can't-
lots of ships.
I can't consume all that crap. They need to, like, not guide my hand, but you know what I mean. Like, come on, guys. It's not that hard to just put stuff in your movie.
And
I
plan
would-
it out.
I would have sat through 3 hours of Star Wars. I would have been okay with
I would
it.
have gladly done that too.
There was one thing that I thought was done well, like tracing back to these books. It was a side character. You know the guy that died that...
Or Santeca?
No, because that was Force Awakens.
Oh, are you talking about Rise of Skywalker?
Rise of Skywalker. The guy that died and Poe is like, no! Like he gets really sad
Oh,
after that
snap.
one guy dies. He was the main character in a book. He had 5 seconds of screen time. It was a callback to that book and a callback to the relationship he had with Poe in that book. That was it. And it was handled well. If you like the book, then great, it's a wonderful scene. If you don't like the book, it's only 5 seconds long, so you don't really care too much.
I was kind of sad when he got blasted, though. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, snap.
So it's like one really well handled thing for 10,000 not well handled
Well,
things.
there is another one. So in I can't remember the book, but I was reading about it. When Ben Solo was born, Lando gives him the blaster. And he's like, kid might need this later on in life or something. Gives him the blaster when he is born. And it's the same blaster as described in the book that Ben Solo has when he's like, and he jumps, he's like, ow. And then and he's running and he's using it. It's Lando's blaster that he gives him. He holds on to it for his whole life. And I really thought that was cool. I was like, check that out.
But nice little references are great. It doesn't need to be on the nose about it. But when your entire plot depends on you reading the book to find out why this is happening,
yes,
I feel like there's big issues with your lack of planning going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they convinced Harrison Ford to come into this movie.
Money.
Oh, I'm sure that they gave him an undisclosed amount of money that came out of the Disney vault.
To be fair, they might not have convinced him. I'm still under the impression that maybe they just took some random footage of him from Force Awakens filming.
I think that was him.
They very well could have.
Because he didn't bother to shave for this. It's like scenes that they just took from extras credits or whatever.
I choose to believe that was the real Harrison Ford.
Just like half of Leia's scenes were extra shots from Force
By
Awakens.
the way, I thought they did a good job with Carrie Fisher. As much as they could do, I thought they did a good job.
I thought they did a good job, but it was so obvious to me. There's so many scenes where Leia's having a conversation with someone, and she's not looking towards the camera, and you only see the back of her head. And I felt like, so that's when her daughter's there. And so it almost took me out because it never showed her face. You see her having an emotional conversation with Rey, and Rey's crying and talking about how she needs training. And you just see Leia's back of the head the entire time. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I understand that, but
So just
they're only gonna do.
Right. They did what they could.
yeah.
And I
I still feel like they could have just had her die in the year between Last Jedi and
yeah,
Could have been okay.
open with her funeral or something.
I do think it's kind of strange though that for some reason, and if you guys have an explanation for this, then cool. But when Rey stabs Kylo Ren, she dies, but for some reason she doesn't become one with the Force until Ben does.
I kind of know the answer to this because of the explanations that were given in the visual dictionary and stuff. She was doing what Luke did during Last Jedi.
yes.
So she was force projecting herself. We didn't see her force projection, but that's what distracted Ben enough that he got stabbed by Rey.
Ben! Sorry.
So,
Keep going.
so she died, but until the mission was completed, because once Rey and all of them in Last Jedi had escaped, that meant Luke's mission was completed. So that's when he faded away. He didn't fade away until they were in the ship. Or just until
Okay.
they were guaranteed to leave. So his mission was finished. And so Leia's mission was not to have her son get stabbed, it was to help her son come back to the light and do good things again. So until her mission was completely finished, she could have joined the Force.
Okay,
I'll buy that.
I can buy that. But
That's also something in the books, so why would you
yeah,
know
it's a
about
flaw
that?
of the movie because a lot of people don't read the books,
Yeah.
and so some people are just gonna watch that and be like, "Huh."
I think so. Heading into the third act of this movie, they fly to Exegol, and by the way, the spy is General Hux. And I was like,
I knew it!
I was like, what the freak is he doing? And he's like, shoot me in the leg.
Shoot me in the arm or something.
No, he gets shot and the post shoots him in the leg, but he comes out of nowhere, and actually right before he announces he's a spy, I was like, oh no, Hux is the spy, isn't he? And he's like, Supreme Leader Ren ordered me to do this by myself. You all may leave. And I'm like, no, we'll do it. And he's like, okay. He shoots all of them. I was like, what? He's like, I am the spy. And then the other general that was brought on to replace General Hux, General Pride just goes, poof, and
I did like that. That was funny.
General Pride is such an interesting character because he has his lines talking about I served you in the old empire and I will serve you still. Like, he seems like he has backstory, but you only see him for like 3 minutes in the entire film.
And he pulls an Admiral Pitt and it's a 5-4.
It sucks because I like that actor.
And you see him actually like blowing out of the Star Destroyer.
Oh yeah, that was another thing.
That was really
Dude,
cool.
My little brother, who's 10, he was like, my favorite part of the movie was when that General Pratt guy got blasted out of the front part of the ship. I was like, what are you talking about?
But yeah, you just see him getting blasted forward by the force of the explosion.
I wish he had been there since 7 so that we could see him develop as a character.
Well, they didn't know
I know
that they were going to turn General Hux into a cartoon character.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another problem. That speaks to another problem I have with this whole trilogy, is because, like...
They didn't have a plan.
Well, actually, beyond that, back to the whole thing I said about this movie being, like, a business trilogy, I feel like The Force Awakens was made as a reaction to the reaction of the prequels.
Absolutely.
Which is perfectly fine, because, like, you know, at the time, Star Wars, the identity of the movies had been kind of soiled for some people. And so from a business perspective, Disney knew that they couldn't make a movie like the prequels, because then they would lose a lot of money in their investment, they would turn people off more from Star Wars, and then they're screwed.
Yep.
And so they kind of had to make a movie like the Force, yeah. And, you know, even though it wasn't necessarily that good for lore building, as we've discussed, it was a good business move. But it set a trend for this whole trilogy and being a reactionary trilogy, to where, like, The Last Jedi is its own thing that Rian Johnson did. It doesn't really feel like how The Force Awakens was, trying to, like, get the audience back. They knew they would get their audience back with The Force Awakens, and so then they're like, okay, now let's do our creative thing with The Last Jedi.
I was going to say what you will about Last Jedi, but they didn't do anything reactionary. In fact, they probably did preemptive moves towards...
I would feel that a lot of what Last Jedi did was also reactionary.
Well, true,
But
yeah.
reactionary towards the fans. It's like, oh, you have a theory about such and such thing?
Well,
Well, I'm going to do my own thing.
That's what I mean by preemptive.
Yeah,
Where I'm like,
preemptive reactions.
They're going to do preemptive. Oh, we're going to kill Snoke. You think Snoke is important? Just kidding, he's dead. But then he adds...
Oh, you think Rey's powers have a reason for them because of her family? No, we're going to make it so that she's related to no one.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I can see that too, for sure. But and then the problem with the Rise of Skywalker is there's two different things that are going on. One, you can see very clearly the moments where Disney is, like, reacting to the wrong criticisms or The Last Jedi, or, like, they're reacting in the wrong way. It's like they're very blatantly and obviously reacting to things such as, like, the Holdo maneuver or Luke tossing his lightsaber and stuff like that. Or Hux, for that matter. But then JJ is trying to make a sequel to Force Awakens, not The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. If he wanted to make the sequel to both and honor the whole story, it would have played out different. But yeah.
I agree, but there's also new evidence that has come to light that makes me kind of have a different opinion of it as well.
Okay.
Because the writer, the guy whose name I can't remember right now.
Chris Terrio?
Yeah, Chris Terrio. He was talking specifically about Luke Skywalker, because an interviewer said, was that kind of a jab at Last Jedi? And Chris Terrio's like, no, it absolutely isn't. Didn't you see The Last Jedi? Because he talked about how Luke Skywalker had his entire character arc in Last Jedi and ended up wanting to fight for the Resistance and save the Resistance. And he was the kind of guy that realized he'd been in the wrong all this time by sitting on Act 2. And so Chris Terrio is saying, isn't it a natural evolution that he would say, kind of with a little wry grin, I was wrong, you really shouldn't throw your lightsaber away like I did? Because isn't that the kind of character act that he had in Last Jedi? And so it made me realize they were trying to follow some of these things set up in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. They just did a really bad job of it.
Yeah, because, like, I can definitely understand where he's coming from. But the way that it comes across feels like a jab at the other
I was going to say, coming out of that movie, without knowing that explanation, I would say that coming out of that movie, they were trying to throw the double barrels at Last Jedi.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm in agreement, but not of agreement. It's like, yes, it feels like they were trying to tell Rian Johnson that he screwed everything up, but it also feels like they were just trying to follow along, and they were doing their own thing, and there was no plan, and so it just goes back to that again and again and again, that there was no plan. They were trying to do good by everything that had happened, but they failed miserably in a lot of aspects.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to say about this movie, speaking while I remember it, is the cast that they had in this movie. We kind of touched on people who were acting, but if you think of who is on this cast, you have Billy Dee Williams, Lando Calrissian coming back. You have the guy who was Wedge coming back, and I'm sure he was like, I'm only coming in for 3 seconds and I'm leaving, because he really didn't. He doesn't have that high of Star Wars. I don't remember his name.
I thought he wanted to come back for Force Awakens, though.
He was going to come back for Force Awakens, but they told him that he would be the Lord Santeca guy who would die in the first 5 seconds. So he's like, I don't want to do that. Like,
I was under the
I'm
impression
Wedge. I don't want to die in the first 10 seconds.
And fans would hate that.
I was under the impression that he was angry about being pigeonholed as Wedge Antilles in these movies.
I've heard some different things.
Anyway, he's in it. You have Dom Monaghan. Monaghan?
Yeah, whatever.
I'm sorry, I butchered your name.
Mary.
But Mary. He was also in Lost. He's a really good actor. And he has about 3 seconds of screen time and like 4 lines.
Mm-hmm.
Which make me sad because
It made me sad, too.
you have Kelly Tran, who, say what you will about Rose, but she deserved more than what she got. As after all of the stuff that happened with Last Jedi, she's still kind of important to the story, if you will. And she got swatted aside like Captain Marvel in Endgame.
She got friend zoned with the little.
She got friend zoned hard, man.
Seriously, like she got almost written out. Mary got almost written out. Billy Dee Williams had about 4 lines and was like, "Oh, my pilot days are over." Just kidding. As soon as you guys ask me to go recruit, I'll remember how to fly the Millennium Falcon.
It's because that's what the fans like.
I feel like this movie's missing an hour of content. Like
They need the Snyder director's cut.
But the hilarious
There's
part
actually been
is
things like
there's
stuff
been
like
talks
that.
of,
Yeah.
there's been fans saying release the JJ cut. But the hilarious thing is because we know that the leaks happened like 5 months ago, we know that this is the JJ cut.
Which
There
makes
is no
me-
more stuff.
Which makes me
Yeah.
wonder, like, what would have happened if Disney had got... I mean, they had to do reshoots because Disney made
They
them.
were doing reshoots up to like a month ago.
Yeah.
Which brings
was-
us back to the beginning of this review. Nobody had a plan when they were making these movies.
Like even Luke
Yes.
Skywalker was a reshoot because you could tell he's wearing a wig in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
And also something just looks different and off about his Force Ghost, too. Didn't you notice?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think different and off is a good way to describe a lot of this movie. But like when it comes down to it, we have basically talked smack about this movie for this entire video.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
There were a lot of good things I
I
liked
kind of
about
want to
them.
mention that there are a lot of things that are fun about this movie. Not, I wouldn't say necessarily good, but they're fun. Like this movie does have all the moments you would expect from a Star Wars film, like the big lightsaber fights. They
Which
have
I thought that was
5
cool.
different lightsaber fights
I
between
thought the-
Rey and Kylo.
I thought the Death Star cyber fight was really cool.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I thought the dark cave thing on the Death Star, I thought that was awesome. I thought that was going to be it. When they showed that in the trailer, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. But it
Shark
actually, yeah, it actually was really cool. I actually really liked that part.
I wish it had been more than 5 seconds long.
Seriously, but I thought that part was really cool. I also thought the part where the Jedi were talking to Rey, like if you've paid attention to anything that's happened in the Star Wars in the last in the last decade, like all those voices you hear are people that have like been in Star Wars. Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, Kanan Jarrus was a good addition from Rebels. I really liked Ahsoka, and then Anakin. Okay,
He had a couple lines.
yes, he did,
And
but
then there's some weird choices like Luminara
and Adigalia, and I was like, okay, I don't really know who those voices are, but it's fine. There's one thing that Anakin says in that really just irks me.
the balance of the
No,
force.
yes.
Like I
So,
did.
so that brings us into the next topic of this is the use of Palpatine in this movie, because as you've mentioned, and as I kind of have thought, there is no way on God's green earth that they could have planned to use Palpatine from the beginning. I do not buy it. I can't. I mean, I appreciate that he's in it, but I can't buy it. I thought the fact that they brought Ian McDiarmid back to be Emperor was the right choice. I thought that going into this movie, I was like, this is to save face. They need to bring people back into the Star Wars fold. And Kathleen Kennedy apparently made the decision to bring Ian McDiarmid back. Which, if they were going to do anybody else, I would have been like, oh, let's bring General Grievous back. I would have been like, no way, that's not going to be bad. Or let's bring Darth Vader back. Or Darth Maul. I would have been like, Darth Vader's a good guy. Darth Maul has survived way too long in this universe. And the fact, when he got killed in Rebels, that was pretty dope. So don't bring him back. Like, the fact they brought Palpatine back is like kind of cool. And I guess they shoehorned him into the movie in the best that they could. And I thought the Snoke clones was just... it's just weird. I don't know. That whole first part, I was, aside from Kylo Ren killing people on apparently Mustafar.
Yeah, that was Mustafar.
Yeah, which I thought was cool because he was like.
Apparently, there's vegetation on the planet now.
Yep, it started to grow back, and that was with the ruins of Vader's old fortress, actually.
Which is how he was able to get that.
The Wayfinder.
The Wayfinder, yeah.
Yep.
I already forgot the name of that MacGuffin.
MacGuffin.
Yep.
Anyway, so I appreciated how they Palpatine, and I thought that him having an underground Sith cult on Exegol was awesome.
The design of all that was really neat.
I thought that whole place looked so cool, and it totally should have been Korriban, but that's just Korriban, whatever.
Or is it Moraband? Is it?
No, it's Korriban.
No, Moraband was the one with the father, son, and daughter.
Oh, right.
Was Moraband that one? I don't remember.
It doesn't matter.
That whole part of Clone Wars.
Watch Clone Wars.
That whole part of Clone Wars was an interesting little side quest that they went on, but totally should have been Korriban. I was like, please say Korriban, please say Korriban, please say Korriban. Exegol. I was like,
I tend to be in kind of an agreement. Like Ian McDiarmid, I almost wish he would have hammed it up more.
Honestly, yeah.
Like
he was hamming it
He
bad.
should have been totally episode 3. Like he should have been going full out. And he kind of did after he got his powers back after training.
Look what you have made.
He is such a gem in Star Wars, and I wish they'd have used him more.
It's because the dude came from theater. He was already a respected theater actor, and then he was like, just kidding, I want to be in Star Wars, make me the bad guy.
But it just feels so ham-fisted.
Yeah.
So ham-fisted.
You know what?
Because they don't even bother explaining how he survived the Death Star. He's missing fingers, and he looks kind of like he had white paint sprayed on him, but that's about it.
They have that one line that he is repeated from his Darth Plagueis story to kind of explain it, but like it's not enough.
So there's a pathway to many abilities, some considered unnatural. That's it.
If they had gone with the way that it's kind of implied in the visual dictionary, that the chemists that are all surrounding him with all their vats and everything had basically just revived his corpse, and that he wasn't actually alive, it was just like his ghost possessing his corpse.
That would have been cool.
Through that alchemy. If they had explained that, I would have been like, yeah, I can accept that.
That would have been really cool.
Except
actually.
it isn't.
But it isn't.
And they have to make it for kids, man. So I don't... That was the other thing my dad and I talked about after this movie. He's like, they have to make it for kids, so they can't be like...
Episode 3 had children getting slaughtered.
Off
They
screen.
didn't show it off. They didn't show it
They
off.
don't show anything off screen.
I'm
either.
just saying. Like, they have to make it for kids, so they can't make it that scary. But that would have been really cool. And I would have bought that.
To that point, though, the thing that makes Palpatine so hilarious for me in this movie is the fact that like apparatus he's attached to makes him look like Gladys from Portal.
Yeah.
Like instead of like Gladys's like personality core, it's Palpatine. That's what he is.
So when he was coming back, I was really hoping. I didn't think that Kylo Ren was going to get redeemed in this movie. I thought him and Rey were just going to duke it out, and Rey was going to eventually win.
I would so personally argue that he didn't get redeemed.
Well,
he didn't do anything.
Yes, but no, I don't know. I don't know what happened with him. But I really wanted them to do like Kylo versus Rey, and then like have on the ethereal realm, like all the Jedi and all the Sith ever get together and battle it out. That would have been awesome.
One of the early leaks did mention that ghosts would appear behind Rey when she was doing her attack back.
That would have been awesome, and that totally would have made the last part even cooler.
It would have been a bit on the nose, but I would have liked it.
I mean, it's all on the nose. Like
It's
there's
Star
no
Wars.
subtlety to this movie whatsoever.
But I would have liked that. The voices were cool, but I think if they had added the Force Ghost, that would have been it. But I have to point out before we get any farther that when Anakin's like, bring balance to the Force, as I did, I was like, no, you didn't. Palpatine's still alive right there.
It's like it totally undermines the original trilogy.
The entire first 6 movies, because it was all Anakin's story after that point.
Yeah.
That comes later. I have words to say about that too.
And that's the only mentioning of
Anakin in the whole movie or whole sequel trilogy, honestly.
Yeah.
Except for his mask.
Well, but that's the mentioning of Darth Vader, though, not Anakin himself.
Yeah.
The redeemed Anakin. Which, it bothers me.
It bothers me so much. And the fact that Vader had to sacrifice his life by picking up Palpatine, getting zapped the entire time, throwing him down a pit shaft after he'd already been fighting with Luke. So there was like an actual effort that went into Anakin's redemption, even if it was just a half hour's worth of effort. Rey literally just had to pick up 2 lightsabers and walk forward, and it blows up Palpatine with his own lightning, and that's
You
it.
think you would have learned by now?
You can turn it off, man. You can
Jedi's
turn
are
it
gonna
off.
reflect that back at you, homie.
Like
Just turn
Mace
it
Windu
off.
does it in number 3. Like
But now the reason why he didn't kill him is because he had 1 lightsaber, not 2.
yeah. So if the idea is that more lightsabers equals more power, General Grievous is obviously the strongest individual in the entire Star Wars canon.
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
I would have liked, along the same lines of Jedi ghosts and Sith ghosts fighting each other, it would have been totally cool if Palpatine was like a little bit like Yoda, where Yoda was like, call down lightning. And I mean, he did, and he was like, unlimited power!
And he blasted all the ships and did absolutely nothing.
The huge EMP.
The huge EMP.
Yeah, I would have liked to have a big Force battle with him, but I digress. It would have been a little bit more CGI and just...
I would have liked to have anything more of Ian McDiarmid.
I almost wanted him to battle Ben Solo and Rey with lightsabers. Now that would have been cool.
Just do the Force spin again. That would have been some nostalgia.
Or
right
honestly, even if he would just cut out of the movie altogether, and it was just about Rey and Kylo,
agree.
it would have been different, but that would have been cool. Because if they were going to keep Rey as a Palpatine, which I honestly didn't really mind all that much.
I didn't either. We all saw it coming.
Yeah, but if those 2 storylines were kept in there, that wouldn't have messed with what Anakin's legacy, because he still would have brought balance to the Force, but there would be this recurring theme of these 2 families basically causing all the worst stuff in the galaxy. And so if you have them clashing at the end, but on opposite spectrums, that could have been really interesting.
It could have if they had done it from the very beginning.
Well, and I know we keep circling back to that, but
But
Seriously, that's the point of the whole thing. If they'd had a plan from the beginning, we would be having this conversation in a negative connotation.
guys, everyone who's listening here and hating us right now,
Just so you know,
we wanted to like this movie.
We really
I even like it still, but I'm allowed to tell you that there are parts of this movie. It's like Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is horrible. That doesn't mean that there's not good parts in it.
Oh, of course.
It is the single coolest sound effect in all of Star Wars.
Did you hear the EMP sound in this movie?
No, I didn't. I was paying
That was
attention.
really cool sound.
No, but it had Jango Fett. It had clone troopers. It had Yoda flipping and playing lightsaber battles for the first time, which was really cool to me when I first saw it. But that doesn't mean that it's not a steaming pile of hot garbage. Attack of the Clones is still the worst Star Wars movie.
That movie's a YouTube clip movie. One where you don't want to watch the whole thing, but you're fine with pulling up certain clips.
Or quoting it with your friends.
Yeah.
That's about it.
I actually liked Rise of Skywalker. It's just the first hour wasn't very fun for me.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a JJ movie. Just turn your brain off and enjoy. And you know what? As a movie, it would be fine as that.
Yep.
I think as a movie, if you just don't think about it too much, you'll have a great time.
Yeah, but the problem is that they hyped it up as the conclusion to a trilogy and then a conclusion to everything. And so if you're going to think about it as a conclusion to story, you kind of have to think about it.
Yeah.
That's just how I see it anyway. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but and that's personally why this movie is possibly my biggest disappointment of the year. Just because I wanted it to be something that I could personally invest myself into without having to suspend disbelief, but no.
But that it all goes back to that. Like, what are you looking for? If you're looking for the proper end game of the entire Star Wars 9 movies, everything builds up to this, you're not going to find it here. You're going to find a fun action movie that has lightsabers and has starships and blowing up things and planets getting going boom and all these things, but you're not going to find something that you can really sink your teeth into.
I'll talk about this in a future video, I'm sure, because it's something I'm interested in going into more, but what I looked for in this movie is what I look for in any movie, honestly. I look for the ratatouille that Anton Ego ate when he was a kid. I want that thing that just makes me go, dang, that really hit me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why sometimes I'm harder on movies than others, just because, like, you know, there's a lot of effort that goes into making these movies, and I respect that. And I also really respect just all these people who are trying their hardest to, you know, to provide for themselves by making art for us. But when a product's bad, I guess.
Yeah. It just happens.
Yeah. But in the end, it's still a movie, and I mean, if it's earth-shattering for your whole entire life, then I'm sorry, but you can still consider Return of the Jedi the canonical end if you want to.
I do.
And the canonical end in that case is great, so...
Absolutely. The sequel trilogy does not exist. These are not the sequels that you're looking for.
You know what's funny, and it would be a classic Disney move? They'll probably end up retconning this whole thing.
If they did, that would be the most hysterical
that
thing.
would be them admitting they made a mistake, though. Disney doesn't do that these days. They just sweep things under the rug.
Who did that? Star Trek? Walt's retconned their whole thing.
Terminator, like 3 times over.
And they've been worse every
They've
single
been bad.
time.
I'm trying to think of one that actually did it really good.
Halloween.
Oh,
yeah, Halloween did it good too.
Like, say what you will about the 6 sequels that are all garbage, but if you like the original one, you'll love the new one.
That's true.
Yeah. I don't think it's great, but yeah, I mean, it works.
Spider-Man, Homecoming. Rebooted Spider-Man.
I was looking at a list just the other day. It had 3 movies that have all come out recently that are renewals of properties from like 30 years ago. And they were all done really well, and people loved Blade Runner was one, and Mad Max.
Mad Max was good.
Mad
Max was
incredible.
really good.
It takes a movie, like, it's bringing back a series from 30, 40 years ago that's actually faithful and true to the original stuff, and does it well.
And does something new, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean...
So it can be done.
It'll be done, and it'll probably be done by Disney. And honestly, in like
It's just
20 years...
we don't remember this.
Well, they're going to do... They've done it on Disney+. If you looked at Disney+, they've done Swiss Family Robinson. Within 20 years of each other, they've done Swiss Family Robinson, Swiss Family Robinson in color, Swiss Family Robinson animated.
There's 3 different versions of Freaky Friday.
Yeah. It's probably going to be inevitable that we'll get another Star Wars reboot.
What hurts me, though, is that they can't do it again. Harrison Ford is not going to come back for a new trilogy.
Nope.
Mark Hamill, extremely debatable if he would come back.
No,
I really doubt.
And he wouldn't do it.
And Carrie Fisher's gone.
Yeah.
And so is the original Chewbacca actor. And so the new guy's been doing good. But
I actually really like Chewie in this one.
And so it's like they can't redo this. And that's what hurts so bad is even if they decided to sweep everything under the rug, so we're going to do the sequel trilogy right this time. And
They
we're going
can't
to do it. It's gone. The chance is gone. This is what we've got.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, these are the sequel movies.
The irony, though, is I remember seeing a post on Facebook, I think it was either last month or in November, but they said sometime this month they're going to announce what the next trilogy will be like and like who the director will be.
They were supposed to on this Monday, but they didn't, I guess.
But I mean, who knows? With all this stuff about their new movie, maybe they'll push it back and do some soul searching first.
I kind of don't care.
I don't care either.
Like, if they announced that it was Knights of the Old Republic, I'd be like, oh, cool, KOTOR. But then I'm like, oh wait, it's Disney doing it. What are they going to ruin about KOTOR?
If they just focus on their television shows, I'm fine with that.
I can work with that. Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. We've said repeated times during this whole thing about how they should have gone in with a plan. Going forward, I mean, we haven't had time to try and kind of chat about this, but going forward, what would be your plan? What would be the first, like, 6, let's do 3 things that you would do?
Do you mean with this trilogy?
No, just Star Wars in general. Like, where do they go from now?
I think, first off, we need to shake up the leadership. Like, different
I
story
agree.
group, different head of productions. Kathleen Kennedy is an amazing producer, has done a lot of wonderful works over the years, but I don't think Star Wars is what she excelled at. And so I think having her step down and putting someone like Filoni in could really do wonders for it, but also working with the old books, the old universe.
I think that would be a good place to
Like,
start.
we've already started with that. We've brought Thrawn back in Rebels. And so we've got a couple different references here and there, but
Have you watched Rebels?
I've seen
He's
parts.
ridiculously good in Rebels.
And so that's
He's really, really, really good in Rebels.
so we need more of that. Like, don't bring back the really crappy The Courtship of Princess Leia one. Like, that was a horrible book that we do not ever need to talk about again. But bring back more of the Thrawn trilogy books, or bring back more of this and this and this. Luke is gone, Han is gone, Leia's gone, but we can work with some of these ideas.
I would even be okay if they went, okay, now we're going to skip forward
100 years,
100 years or something.
1,000 years.
Whatever. If they can skip forward 1,000 years, I don't care. But if they need to reboot it with a main new lead, and they need to do it with a whole new group of people with no ties to this saga. Start fresh and make it just, not whatever they want, because that could end up badly. But focus on the old source material that we all like, the expanded universe, and focus on some new people and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as long as they break away from the Skywalker era in some way, like if they go back as far as Old Republic, cool. But if not, they just try something else, then cool, I suppose.
Yeah.
You guys have pretty much already said what I would have said.
Time for a new beginning. We need to just cut ties with the past. Let the past die. Kill it if we have to.
Yeah. That's what they did with Marvel. Do you remember what Marvel was before they started making Iron Man?
Yeah, they rebooted the comics since then, and twice.
Yeah, they rebooted them twice. DC's rebooted twice too.
DC's rebooted 3 times in the
Oh,
last
really?
decade.
Oh, I knew it too. I didn't know.
They had the
it
New
too.
52. They had another Galaxy shake-up kind of thing. But yeah.
Overall, I agree with what you guys are saying with what to do. I think they need to have probably Filoni headed up, because Feige, that's what Feige did. Feige did it when they did Avengers and they had Age of Ultron. Like, I don't remember when Feige was really hired. Was he from the beginning?
He was.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh.
He didn't have supreme control over it because Marvel was still trying to take over and was still trying to like head over things, and so he was making some bad decisions. And so Kevin Feige was basically, hey Disney, can I take over and do it right? And so that's when he took over completely.
I believe that was right around Age of Ultron, right?
Well, Disney bought Marvel in like 2009 or something,
Mm-hmm.
which Iron Man 2 hadn't even come out yet at that point. So I can't really tell you when Kevin Feige took over, but
It's gotta be, because Age of Ultron was kind of wonky, but I don't know.
That was
In
a lot
any
before
case,
that.
he took over and decided to completely helm the ship in a completely different way, and has more than made Marvel's investment, or Disney's investment back. I think Star Wars just probably needs to find their Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think that they'd be fine. I also would be cool with them not doing trilogies and just doing standalone movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, like a Crime Underworld one would be really cool.
Standalone movies and TV shows.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Give us more video games. I want good single-player Star Wars.
That's on EA. So
Not Battlefront 2, crap.
Well, even Disney didn't like where they took Battlefront 2 at first.
More of Fallen Order, please.
Yes, more. Well, they are making a sequel at least.
Yeah,
so
but more of that. Also, how they... Never mind, I haven't beat
Finishing
Fallen Order.
statements,
I haven't beat Fallen Order yet, but it's a good game so far. Overall, I liked it. I know, kind of contrary to what I've been saying, I actually really enjoyed watching it. I thought overall, when I turned my brain off, I thought it was good. There's just nitpicky stuff in the movie. Not nitpicky, like stuff in the first half of the movie was just like weird to me. But other than that, I thought it was enjoyable.
I had fun, but at the same time, I've also had exposure to some of these plot points that you guys did not when we went and saw it.
Yep.
Because I read the leaks months before. I've mentioned that a couple times, and for me, it gave me the chance to really like muse over that and say, okay, this I like, this I don't like, this I can handle, this I want the context for. And so I had time to think about it before seeing the movie. And so when I did see the movie, that meant a lot of the things that I really would have disliked, I was kind of like, okay, that's fine. Like, I can just ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's stuff about this movie that I just hate. Like, that I just think is so dumb. Like, I will never, ever, ever say Rey Skywalker with a, like, unironically. Because I just hate that entire plot point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's stuff that's fun. And if you're going to Star Wars for fun, great. More power to you. My friend I mentioned in our text chat that he only wants more Star Wars. So he doesn't care about quality whatsoever. As long as it's got Star Wars in the name tag, he's happy. And I wish I could be happy like that. I really do.
I wish I could too, man. But
And
if
so,
I did, I wouldn't have this channel here.
absolutely.
And that's just being honest. Yeah.
I enjoyed myself, but not necessarily because I thought it was a good movie. I just enjoyed myself because I could turn the brain off.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's what I need to do now.
And you were watching us the whole movie.
And I was having a great time watching your guys' reactions.
Oh yeah.
Watching Justin when Han Solo came out, that was such a highlight right there.
Dude, Han Solo is my favorite character. And I almost hated Force Awakens when they killed him off. But I've since come to grips with that. It's okay.
Come to peace.
Solo was good. I think if they're going to make another Solo movie, I wouldn't be unhappy with that, actually.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think that would be good.
Well, in summation of my opinion, I've already said that Star Wars is like what Anton Ego wants food to be for me, but I don't want to have like unrealistic expectations
Love
either.
Ratatouille.
Oh,
Love
so
it
good.
so much.
That is what I need to watch after this.
Live action reboot.
Stop. Stop, Disney.
But I guess just for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, I was hoping it'll at least just be a consistent and good film that I could enjoy as like a closure to this whole saga, which is what they marketed it as. But I don't know, it wasn't for me. But I still want to acknowledge that I enjoyed watching this with you guys too.
Yeah.
Like just whether or not it was ironic or unironic enjoyment, that's up for debate.
What was the part that you threw your hat down for?
When Rey and Kylo Ren kissed,
I remember
both
that.
of us freaking were like, no. Because I heard Zach on the side, he was like, no. And I was like, oh no, they're going to do
it was coming, and I
Both,
was so
both
excited.
me and Zach were like, no.
Yeah,
and I was like this. Zach threw his hat down.
my muscles were tensing up just sitting there. In
You
that
said you had
seat.
like 3 expectations before going to this movie, and one of them was that you really didn't want Rey and Kylo to get together, and I was just like, I had to bite my tongue.
But no, Reylo shippers are mad because
They're ticked off because Kylo died. Literally, no fans that had expectations going into this movie are happy with how those expectations were fulfilled.
yeah, because I mean,
None.
Rose and Finn didn't become a thing. It's just like cool.
You know, if there's ever a comic about that, please let me know. Because I
I
want to
will.
know how that conversation went where they were like, just kidding, we can't ever be friends.
Right?
Good times.
Anyway, thank you for sticking around for these videos for so long. It took us about
13 months.
13 months, yeah. to do all these, but we appreciate you sticking around. I know that not everyone likes the roundtable videos, to be honest, but we like doing them. We like discussing it in this way. And for those of you that watch us do this and enjoy it, we thank you. We will continue to do more of these for other videos. We want to try to do one for Mandalorian Season 1, because that is actually some quality content there.
Thumbs up.
And then we also have thrown out the idea of discussing the Sonic movie that comes out next month.
Is that next month?
Yeah, it's
Valentine's
it's
Day.
for Valentine's Day. Take a
Hey,
date.
we can. No, that'll be around my birthday. We can go for my birthday.
Yeah, dude, that'd be great.
I should still take a date.
Yeah, you should.
But yeah, so we want to do one on that movie, and who knows, maybe we can do some on others in the future. We'll let you know when that comes up.
There's no movies coming out this year to review.
What about James Bond, though?
Okay, I'll stick around for that one actually. But I'm not watching 25 James Bond movies.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
I thought about it
every
again.
week until then.
I thought about it, and I'm only going to do the Daniel Craig ones.
That's worth it. I'll probably rewatch Spectre.
Yeah.
That's about it.
But thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a great one. Happy New Year!
Bye.